Hello and welcome to another video. So today I'm at Ujina Port, which is the ferry port for Hiroshima City, and as you can see it's not the best of weather, but I'm heading to this island just here, Ninoshima. So Ninoshima is the largest of the islands within Hiroshima City, and I'm not going to say it's famous, but it's slightly well known for its mountain, which is called Aki no Kofuji, and that means the little Mount Fuji of Aki. Aki being the old name for this region of Japan. What I'm hoping to do is walk around the whole island. It's about 9 kilometers, so it's not a difficult walk at all. However, some of the roads may actually not be passable. I can't find any up-to-date information about that, so it may be that I have to turn back part way around the island. But anyway, it's a pleasant enough afternoon for a walk, so I'm going to go and see whether I can get, in fact, all the way around the island. And the ferry has just arrived, so I think I'm going to head over that way and get on it. So that's the ferry I need to catch. It's going to be heading back to the island in just about 20 minutes. I don't think we can get on yet. There are people just getting off, but normally they take a few minutes to check that everything's ready for the next journey. So I will wander over there in a minute or two. Okay, so I'm on the ferry now. It leaves in about 8 minutes. At the minute, I think there are about 5 or 6 people on the ferry. One of whom, interestingly, is the postman. So they obviously take the post over from the mainland, and then the same postman rides around the island and delivers it, which is quite quaint. But in a way, quaint is a word you can maybe use to describe the whole island. It really does feel, I know from when I've been before, it feels like stepping back 40, maybe even 50 years. For example, one of the facts that's quite often mentioned about the island is that there are no traffic signals anywhere on it, which in a way doesn't surprise me because there aren't many cars on it. But anyway, we'll see that when we get there. This service, the 2 o'clock service from Hiroshima, is, well, not supposed to, but maybe calls at the second port on the island before heading round to the main port. However, the timetable doesn't really make it clear. It may be that it goes straight to the main port and then calls at the secondary port on the way back. So it may be a 20-minute journey to the island, or if it does call at this second port, it may be 50 minutes. In any case, I love ferries, so 50 minutes, 20 minutes, it doesn't bother me either way. I'm just looking forward to the journey, in a way. Another ferry just leaving there. I think that's the ferry to Etajima, to Mitaka port, if I remember correctly. I used to catch that quite often when I lived in Etajima, but it's been a long time since I've been on it. It's been quite a few years since I've been to Ninoshima. I'm pretty sure that not much will have changed on the island itself, but one thing that had changed at the ferry port is that you can now pay for your ticket with your smartphone, which is pretty futuristic for this little rural ferry. I suppose that's progress though, not a bad thing. It's a good thing, in fact. I like paying with my smartphone. As you can see, there are quite a few ferry services going backwards and forwards from Hiroshima port. I think now there are 3 main routes. One of them is this ferry to Ninoshima, and then as far as I can remember there are 2 ferry services which run to Etajima. One of them goes to Kirikushi, which is in that side of the island, and the other one, the one that just left, goes to Mitaka, which is sort of behind Ninoshima. Of course, Ninoshima has no bridge, so there's only a ferry service. Etajima has a bridge to the mainland over towards Kure, but from here it's a very long way round. So in actual fact the ferry is much more convenient and very, very much faster than driving. Anyway, we're just setting off. I think there's maybe one car on the ferry, and then the postman's motorbike. Mind you, it's 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, so in a way it would be quite surprising if it was busy, I think. Still, it's good that these services run relatively frequently. It would be a shame if there are only like 2 or 3 services a day. I think at the minute there are 11 services each way, which is not so bad. Again, I'm not sure, but I think I looked this morning actually, and I think there are 700 and something people on the island, so not a huge amount, but obviously enough to sustain a relatively regular ferry service. I suppose it helps that the island is physically quite close to Hiroshima city. I mean, if you've only got a 20-minute or so ferry journey, it means that you can live on the island and commute without any real problem. So as we head out past the lighthouses at the entrance to the port, or I suppose the exit, you get quite a good view out all the way across Hiroshima Bay. So just here is Moto Ujina, and then out in the distance is the mainland heading around through Saka and towards Kure, which is sort of over there. This island here is Etajima, and the little island here in the foreground is Togejima. Togejima is uninhabited, but when I lived in Etajima there was always a rumor, and I don't know if it was an urban myth or what it was, but there was a rumor that there was, or at least there used to be, a hermit who lived on the island. I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway, it was interesting to think about how it might have been. Here is Ninoshima, and then it's a little bit difficult to see, but this island here, you can just sort of see in the mist, is Miyajima. So they're the main islands we've got, and it really is very difficult to see, but there's a very low island just here, which is Atatajima, and I visited there in an earlier video, so if you're interested, please take a look. It may just be because of the tide, but we do seem to be veering slightly to the left-hand side of the island, so maybe we are going to call it the second port on Ninoshima. Let's see what happens. Okay, it doesn't look in the end like we are heading to the second port. So it's only going to be about just over 5 minutes until we get to Ninoshima. I'm looking forward to it, and it doesn't look very promising on this video, but in actual fact it does seem to be clearing up a little bit. The weather seems to be significantly less cloudy than it was earlier, so it may in the end be quite a pleasant afternoon stroll. Let's hope so. I have climbed Aki no Kofuji there before, several times in fact, and from the summit there is a wonderful view out over Hiroshima Bay and further out into the inland sea. Today though, there's no way I'm even going to think of climbing it. And the reason? Well, there's one word: snakes. I think the best time to climb it is in winter. No snakes, and in actual fact, to be serious, the view is much better in winter because the air is much clearer. I mean, just looking at Miyajima now, it's not so far away, but it's almost invisible because of the haze. So I think even if I climbed Aki no Kofuji today, I wouldn't see very much. Whereas in winter, the sky is blue, the air is perfectly clear, and there really is a wonderful view. Maybe this winter. Once again, maybe it's a little bit difficult to see on this video, but the ferry port is just there. So it's going to be about 2 minutes, I think, now. So just as I'm setting off, so is the ferry back to Hiroshima. It's certainly a lot warmer and a lot more humid here than it was in Hiroshima. I'm not suggesting that the climate is somehow different. I'm just saying it's certainly brightening up. Anyway, I have a drink. I've taken my mask off. I've got my camera out. I'm ready to go. So, let's head off. Can you hear the cicadas? There's sort of a metallic buzzing in the background. If the cicadas are starting to chirp, it means the rainy season is coming close to an end, which means that the real summer, the hot, boiling, broiling summer is very close to being upon us. Of course, on one hand, it's good that the rainy season is finished, especially as this year in Hiroshima, at the minute, touch wood, we've escaped any serious damage from heavy rains. Unfortunately, yesterday in Shizuoka, in Atami City, there was a huge mudslide which has caused huge damage in a certain part of the city, and it looks like it's also taken a number of lives. I remember, when was it, 3 years ago, when around 200 people lost their lives here in Hiroshima. It really is a terrible occurrence. It's shocking, scarily shocking, how strong the power of concentrated rain can be. So as I say, on one hand it is good that the rainy season has finished, but yeah, we have the heat of summer to contend with for the next month and a half, 2 months, if we're lucky. Month and a half, yeah. Oh, maybe you can hear the cicadas now. They're fairly loud here. I don't know if you can, I'm sure you can actually, see that this road is sort of two colours. There's a dark grey area here and a light grey area here. Well, it's difficult to see on the video, I'm sure, but this part, the dark grey, was the original road. So I think if I lay down sideways, I would just about fit into the width of it. I mean, it must be just about one car's width. Obviously, it's been repaired and renewed heading back towards the ferry port, but this is the end of it. From here, the road really is just about wide enough for one car. I don't think I'd like to drive this myself, but as I say, I'm not driving, I'm walking. So, let's continue. Okay, so we're coming up to this sign in the middle of the road, and it says that anything other than light four-wheeled vehicles will have trouble getting past. Well, I'm not, so I'm going to go on. Basically, it's not that far around the island, and if I get to some point where I can't get past, I can turn around. You have to wonder what these stairs were for. I mean, there's not much space between the cliff and the road to have built any sort of building, really. I don't know. Anyway, while I'm here, let me just show you. This is quite a nice view out from this little point. So over there we're looking across to Hatsukaichi, that sort of area. And then just there is Hiroshima port, and in the far background, the middle of Hiroshima city. It's rather a nice view. Another nice little strip of sand just here by the road. It would be nice to go down, but I want to get on a little further, I think. I think at this point we're slowly heading round to the tip of the island. In other words, the part of the island which is closest to Hiroshima city itself. So far, no problem with the road. In fact, an old man on some sort of motor scooter just came trundling past, and I'm gonna guess he lives on the island. So if he's coming along here, presumably the road is passable. So let's hope it stays that way. Another rather nice beach just here. In summer this would be, I would say, quite a nice place to spend an afternoon. It would be a little bit difficult to get to, but nevertheless. Anyway, let's go on. I think This really is the furthest part of the island just here. Okay, I think after this we're heading slowly back towards the middle point of the island, and from there actually there is a path that goes back to the ferry port. So if I wanted to cut the walk short, I could. At the minute though, I'm quite enjoying it. It's hot, it's humid, there are random noises from the hills above me, which I'm not entirely happy about, but at the minute, no problems. Could be famous last words there, but anyway. So, once again, I sound like a broken record here. It's a little bit difficult to see, but that's Moto Ujina and then Hiroshima Port. Okay, so from this point, we've sort of changed direction almost 180 degrees, and we're heading back along, I suppose you could say, the other side of course the island, but the other side of Hiroshima Bay. So the view now is not out towards the outskirts of Hiroshima city, but towards Saka and then along towards Kure. We have once again just there Etajima in the background. That's Togejima, the reputed, let's say, hermit island, and it's a very different scene in a way. This feels much, I mean, looking at the mainland, it feels much less built up than the Hiroshima side. I suppose it is, really. Anyway, I'm going to head on back, and in about a kilometre or so, I think there is the second of the island's ferry ports. Not that I'm planning to catch the ferry from there, but that might be a good place to take a break and have a drink. It's tantalising, really. There are so many places where there are hints that maybe in the past, in this part of the island, there was significantly more human activity than there is now, which is basically zero now. For example, you can see here, this is just completely full of weeds now, but every now and again you can see hints of little paths further in away from the coast. I've seen old brick walls. There's a little stream here that looks sort of man-made. I would guess that in the past this was a lot less wild than it is now. And as I say, it's, in a way, it's tantalizing, it's intriguing, really. I wonder, I can guess why it became so wild, as people just left the island. It happens in so many islands across the Inland Sea, not just the Inland Sea in fact. Many rural parts of Japan, I think, have exactly the same problems. But I wonder when it started. As I say, it is rather intriguing. Once again, a path up into the mountains up there. Obviously this shed is something relatively new, but you can see that the path goes all the way up there. There's no way I'm even going to attempt to follow it at this this time of year. Again, the S word, snakes. But maybe if I ever came in winter, it would be interesting to see where it led to. This is probably a good example of just how wild this island has become now. These trees here, I don't know, shoots, are, if I'm 2 meters, they're at least well over 4 meters, let's put it that way. It really is, it's more like a jungle than a place where people used once to garden. I can't show you because every time I get close they run away, but the sea wall all along here has been, I think infested is a good word, infested with little creatures called funamushi. Now I don't know what they are, and to be honest I don't want to know what they are. But if I had to give them a name, a sort of a descriptive name, let's say, I think I'd call them sea cockroaches. You find them in places like this, along the sea, on sea walls in summer, and just like cockroaches, they look like cockroaches and they sort of act like cockroaches. They scurry around and things. That's about it, really. But just like cockroaches, they're not very pleasant. As far as I know, they don't bite. As I say, when you go close to them, they scurry away. And I've been taking photographs just here, and I haven't had any on my shoes, at least as far as I know. So they're not dangerous, really, or at all, in fact. They're just unpleasant. I just find myself wondering what their purpose in life is, really. Anyway, changing the subject, there's a rather beautiful view all the way across Hiroshima Bay from here. I'm glad I came to the island today because, as you can see, it's cloudy, and that has meant that it's not quite as warm, not quite as humid as it otherwise would have been. And I think as well, walking around some of the parts of the island earlier, I think if it had been very hot, very humid, there would have been significantly larger numbers of insects, which would have been very definitely unpleasant. So I think it has been a good day to come today, but at the same time, I think if I were here on a day when the sky was a perfect blue, there would be scope for some spectacular photographs from here. So, I don't know, maybe I need to come again when the weather is good, but not walk around what I'm going to call the jungle part of the island. Maybe that would be the best compromise. So this is the second of the island's ferry ports. It would have been nice to have been able to come this far by ferry, not necessarily to get off here, but just to see the more wild, let's say, part of the island, the jungle part of the island as I'm calling it now, from the ferry. But anyway, the times didn't work out, so I suppose it couldn't be helped. Anyway, from here I can basically go, if we look this way, somewhere over there maybe is a little path across the low part of the hills back to the ferry port, or I can go all the way around the second half of the island. The map said, well, I saw two maps actually. One map said 9 kilometers and one map said 10. In any case, I suppose I'm about halfway. So I think probably I am going to go for the whole island course. Another 5 or 6 kilometers. It's a very pleasant afternoon. I mean, obviously it's basically flat. It's not like I'm climbing hills or anything. It's more than doable. So I think I'm going to do it. In Japan, there's a popular cake called Baumkuchen. It's originally German, but in actual fact, it originated in Japan, here, in Ninoshima, just over 100 years ago. And the story is that in the First World War, I think 1917, there were German prisoners of war stationed here on the island, and they made Baumkuchen presumably as a taste of home, and it started to become popular in Japan. So it seems very unlikely that a rural, predominantly farming, fishing island like this would be the place where such a popular cake originated, but that's the facts. This part of the island, I suppose we call it the southern part of the island, definitely seems a lot less wild than the part of the island I walked along or around earlier. There is a lot of vegetation, but it seems to be trimmed back. You can tell that people take care of this part of the island. That's probably the biggest difference from the first part of the island I walked around. We are heading down the eastern part of the island now, and ahead, getting slowly closer all the time, is Etojima. Like many islands in Hiroshima Bay, Ninoshima has many places where oysters are cultivated, and these are the oyster shells. Any idea what these are? Take a close look. Actually, they are takotsubo. They're octopus pots. In other words, they're the little pots you catch octopuses in. This is the memorial to the atomic bomb victims. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that after August the 6th, 1945, after the bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima, many of the survivors were brought to Ninoshima, hopefully to recuperate. I'm equally sure that I read somewhere that many of them never did recuperate. So anyway, this is the memorial to them. So now the view has changed once again, and we're looking south from the southern tip of Ninoshima. So in front of us is Etojima City. This part here is Etojima Island, and that's Ninoshima Island. They are joined. Basically, if I remember right, just there's an inlet into Hiroshima Bay. This feels like a very remote, almost lonely part of the island, but at the same time it feels remote in a very different way to the northern part. Anyway, I think it's about 3 or so kilometers back to the ferry port now, and for a good part of that time I have these rather nice views of Hiroshima and the Ozu Strait to gaze at as I walk on. It's certainly not a bad walk, I would say that. And now, yet another different view. So we've got just here Ninoshima, once again Atatajima, and in the distance Miyajima. I think we're pretty much on the home stretch now. I think it's probably between 1.5 kilometers and 1/2 kilometer to the ferry port. It's turning out to be rather a beautiful late afternoon, and I think it will be, hopefully, rather a beautiful sunset. Okay, so I'm back at the ferry port, and according to my watch it was a walk of 9.85 kilometers. It's been a warm walk, but it's been a very pleasant walk, and as we say in Japanese, ii ase o kakimashita, which could well be too much information, but it means I sweat some good sweat. And I think it's absolutely true. It's been nice to do a significant bit of exercise for a change. Anyway, I can see the ferry just coming into the port now, so I think it's time to finish. I hope you've enjoyed this walk around Ninoshima. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video very soon. Bye for now.